And I suppose, like, I was wondering, what are some of your top tips to, like, let's say, help, like, ensure a healthy pregnancy for someone who wants to conceive naturally, and then maybe
Mhm.
for someone who decides to go down the IVF route?
Absolutely perfect. So, I would say that the tips would be the same for both, which is wonderful. There might be a few additions you would put in with the IVF, but for both, the top tips would be, the main ones would be with the top three. So the first one would be to minimize what we call endocrine disruptors. Now, endocrine disruptors are chemicals that you can get from the environment, through plastics, through perfumes, anything that has a chemical in it. And some of them are what we call, they disrupt our endocrine function. And the reason behind that is because these chemicals are shaped very similarly to our hormones, okay, to some of our hormones. So you have your cell, okay, and I often describe it as, imagine the postman coming to your door, and your door is your cell, and the postman is your messenger, your hormone, because hormones are messengers. And so the postman comes to the door, knocks on the door, and wants to give you a parcel with information on how to set up your new washing machine. Okay. So that's what hormones are doing. They're coming to our cells. They're either going into the cell, or they're going to sit on the cell, and they're going to give that cell a message so that the cell can carry out a function, so that the tissue can function. But what happens with endocrine disruptors is that they come and they knock on that door first, or they sit into that cell or sit onto that cell. So then when your hormones come to sit into that cell and give the cell a message, there isn't space for them to access the cell. Which also means that hormone is in circulation now in an imbalanced form. Okay, so everything should be pretty well balanced within the body. So endocrine disruptors would be my first thing to try and minimize. So this would be minimizing the use of plastics. Okay, especially things like cling film. I mean, we know research is showing us that plastic molecules have been found in blood and tissue within the body. So we know these plastics are getting into the body, and these plastics are often the endocrine disruptors. So cling film, if you have to use cling film, I would say please don't, but if you're determined to, don't use it on fatty foods or warm foods. The fats can help pull the molecules into the food, the molecules of plastic into the food. And if you're using Tupperware to reheat something in a microwave, if you use a microwave, that's another subject. So I would say don't reheat in plastic. And if you're using plastics, like we often will see those Tupperwares that you might have had bolognese in it 6 months ago, and the orange color is still at the bottom of the Tupperware box. That shows that that plastic has been damaged, and if you're going to heat something in it, that damaged plastic is going to leach into your food. And so minimize those things, and minimize drinking out of a plastic bottle. Don't leave a bottle heat up. But anything you can to minimize plastics would be a win. And then I would minimize perfumes, fragrances, anything like that. But you cannot avoid endocrine disruptors. And I would never expect anybody to, because you know what, you'd have to go and live underground somewhere, and you'd still find them actually underground. So I would say don't become over concerned about it. Just do what you can. Excuse me. So that would be my first one. My second tip then for everybody across the board would be to make sure that your vitamin D levels are in the optimum range. Now you might get tested and you might be told your vitamin D levels are fine. I don't like the word fine when it comes to pregnancy, especially anybody struggling. You're already probably not on an even playing field to the others who are trying to get pregnant and aren't struggling. So let's really up the ante with everything for you. So I would say optimum levels of vitamin D. So over 75 is what your reading would want to be. Over that, sometimes around 85. You don't want to go outside the optimum range because there is a U curve in vitamin D, but stay within that optimum range. If your GP can't test you, some can't, depending on what lab they're going through, a nutritional therapist will be able to test you. So it's just a simple blood test from your finger. So vitamin D levels, vitamin D is a hormone actually, it's a hormone-like substance, and it's really important for fertility. And we know the vitamin D receptors are found in the ovaries, the uterus, so it is important. And as you go through pregnancy, baby will be gobbling up their vitamin Ds. So, we might talk a little bit about that in a moment, maybe. And then I would say eat the rainbow, because the more colorful foods, especially in the fruit and veg that you eat, you should be eating between 7 and 9 fruit and veg a day, but no more than 3 of those should be fruit because of the glucose content. And so you should be eating as wide a range of colors as you possibly can. because each color in a food represents a different antioxidant, and antioxidants are what we need to clear out all the debris and rubbish within the body, to promote the health of the oocyte, which is your egg that you're growing, to promote sperm health. So for anybody, and to promote the uterine lining. So for anybody trying to get pregnant, antioxidant therapy is something that should be in there for you. And you can do this yourself by eating the rainbow. And the more water content to the fruit and veg you're eating, you should be looking at eating it in its organic form if possible. So there would be my top 3 ones for anybody trying to get pregnant and during pregnancy.
Nice, sounds good. So with the first one, I read an interesting book about that a few years ago. It was called Estrogeneration, and it was all about, you know, using BPA free products, and kind of trying to avoid phthalates.
Yes.
So I think phthalates are what are kind of come out of plastic that get into your system, if I remember correctly. But with like a practical solution for that, would it be like, okay, instead of having a plastic container, you know, having something, or like instead of drinking out of, like, let's say a plastic bottle, you could have a like an aluminium bottle or something like that, or you could have
100%. Yeah, or glass.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly the advice I give to my clients. Yeah, that aluminium bottle or a glass bottle, but definitely not a plastic. And if you have to drink out of a plastic one, drink out of it once. You know, if it's one that you buy in the shop once and it's gone, don't let it heat up. Don't let it in the front of the car sitting with the sun, if we ever have sun shining down on top of it. You know, so minimize where possible. But I suppose don't get caught up in getting anxious about it either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's just important to have the balance between doing as much as you can, but not worrying about trying to be perfect either.
100%.
Cool, sounds good.